Well, Laurence Fox is having a bit of a busy day, isn't he? Not only has he been sacked by GB News, along with Calvin Robinson, but this morning he was arrested. He posted a clip on his Reclaim Party website showing the police at his house, and he said, "Look how many coppers there are in my house." Later on, the Metropolitan Police released a statement saying on Wednesday the 4th of October, officers arrested a 45-year-old man on suspicion of conspiring to commit criminal damage to ULEZ cameras and encouraging or assisting offences to be committed. He was arrested in Stockwell and has been taken to South London Police Station, where he remains in custody. Last Friday, the chief executive of GB News said he was appalled by the comments made by Laurence Fox on Dan Wootton's show as Ofcom launched its investigation. Angelos Frangopoulos told BBC Radio 4's Today programme that the broadcaster has a process to follow, but expects the internal investigation to be resolved very quickly. Frangopoulos, a former Sky News Australia chief exec, added, "I was appalled by those comments. They're not in keeping with the values, with us as a business, and obviously we took action immediately." He continued by saying, "I was horrified by what was said. That comment should not have gone on air." For those of you that need a recap, Fox reduced his criticism of the journalist Ave Evans to her bedability, and he ended up by saying, "Who would shag that?" The following morning, Fox made a statement on X, formerly known as Twitter, saying that he stood by every word that he'd said the night before, whereas the host Dan Wootton tried to issue an apology on X and tried to contact Evans and apologise in person, though, from what I gather, she didn't take his call. Though the day after that, Fox came out and apologised, although it was a bit of a lacklustre apology, which when you read it says, "It was her fault for saying that, she made me do it, it wasn't my fault." Calvin Robinson came out in support of Fox, and he has also been sacked. Dan Wootton, the host of the show, is still under review. When Fox made the comments, Wootton can be seen sniggering in the background. After the show, he said the laughing and sniggering was from the shock of what Fox had said, and that he said that he should have stepped in and stopped him, but didn't. However, messages that have been posted online between the two of them show that Fox had shown Wootton pre-show what he was going to say, and Wootton had replied that it would make him laugh. I should imagine that at the moment, Wootton is doing some very serious backpedalling in order to keep his job. He started backpedalling as soon as his programme finished. GB News, on the other hand, will be weighing up how many viewers they may lose if they sack Wootton against appeasing Ofcom, who received over 7,500 complaints about what Fox had said. Robinson, who describes himself on his website as a political advisor, broadcast presenter and conservative commentator, had up until this point presented a religious show on GB News. He's also an Anglican deacon in the Free Church of England, an Episcopal church which broke away from the Church of England in the 19th century. It is affiliated with the conservative Global Anglican Future Conference. His suspension came after he criticised the bosses at GB News live on air. He said, "Our bosses are scared, afraid of Ofcom, afraid of the woke mob." He also accused careerist staff at the channel of wanting to replace Wootton in his presenting slot. It all seems very sordid and toxic over at GB News at the moment. Quite how this will pan out, we will have to wait and see. I'm all for free speech, but not from the consequences of it. Fox's criticism of Evans was juvenile at best. He was supposed to be attacking her for her policies and her views, and he somehow turned it into whether he would shag her or not. I would have been far more impressed if he'd have used a system of bullet points to completely destroy her arguments and reasoning. But instead, he just said, "Who'd shag that?" Well, I'm sure her feelings are reciprocated as well. Behaviour like that is nothing short of bullying, really. And though Fox does have a history of that, he was actually expelled a couple of weeks before taking his A-level exams from Harrow Public School for allegedly bullying, and he was unable to obtain a place at any university due to a report about him from Harrow. He seems to be a troubled man. He was raised as an evangelical Christian. His father, James Fox, the actor, became an evangelical Christian shortly after making the film Performance with Mick Jagger that was directed, I think, by Nicholas Roeg. It was the film was made in '68 and it came out in 1970. The basic story behind it is that James Fox plays a gangster and he has to go into hiding, and so he rents a room in an old house which is owned by Mick Jagger, who's a retired rock star. Well, he would be, wouldn't he? And in the house there's all sorts of experiments with hallucinogenics and stuff like that, and people walking about half clothed, and they kind of transform into each other. When the film was premiered, it was so graphic that lots of people got up and walked out, and an executive from the film company's wife actually vomited in the cinema. Soon after this, James Fox became an evangelical Christian. So there's the history behind it. Anyway, all that aside, we're going to have to see how it pans out at GB News and what happens to Dan Wootton. It could be an interesting few days. As usual, more updates on here if and when I get any. And if you want to keep up with what's going on, don't forget to subscribe.